everybody, it is Rachel here with Yarn at Play Crochet. Welcome to this podcast episode that I have going on here. I figured I would give you guys an update on what I've been working on, my current whips and projects, and just kind of what's been going on in Yarny life. So if you've never been to my channel before, my name is Rachel and I make videos because I love crochet and I love yarn. I do lots of in-depth yarn reviews, which involves hot washing and drying yarn swatches and swatching up little amigurumi balls and working things up on my knitting machine so that I can show you what it looks like knit and crocheted. So I give you as much detail as I can about yarn. I also do a few tutorials and some podcast stuff, just kind of a place for us to hang out, talk about all kinds of great yarn. So today I'm gonna just go over some of my current whips and just kind of chat about what's been going on in life. So first thing, I have been very busy working on getting my website launched, which I am hoping it will be launched soon. Every step of this is a learning curve. And so right now, what I am working through is not just figuring out how to get my website set up, but also how to do like product photography. So people can actually see what I have available and it looks okay. So I'm working through that process right now. But yeah, things are still in the works with that. But I will show you what I have worked on this week. Now this is something that I stitched up for my daughter. And now all of them want one. And so I'm going to be making some for them. But I've also had a lot of people who are really interested in this, and you'll see why here. See that? Look at that cute beanie. Look at that yarn. Isn't that pretty? That is the rainbow yarn is Picasso from Ice Yarn. And the white yarn is Kieran Simply Soft. And this is a crocheted beanie. This is not knit. So you look at it and it looks like it's knit, but it's not knit. It is crocheted. So if you are interested in a tutorial for that, this is extremely simple. If you watched my puffs and bead stitch beanie, it's worked in the seam stitch that I used that for the base of my pattern with that, but instead of putting the rows of puff stitches and bead stitches in, it's just that same base stitch. So it has this really fun kind of candy stripe effect, pin stripe effect. And I love the way that this looks with the rainbow yarn. So I'm still trying to decide if I want to put a pom-pom on this or not. You guys will have to tell me if you think it should have a pom-pom on it. Let me grab a pom-pom. I'll show you, kind of hold it up and so you can see what it looks like. So here's the hat. And if it had a fuzzy white pom-pom on top, yeah, let me hold it the right way so actually, what do you think? Pom-pom? No pom-pom. I can't decide. Ultimately, I'll probably let my kid pick since it is a hat for her. But I really like this a lot. And I'm actually working on making a cowl scarf to go with it. So it won't be like a big puffy cowl scarf. It'll just be like one of those neck warmers that you can wear so you don't have to have a big scarf, because when you get kids in winter gear, it's a pain to wrap a scarf around their neck and they don't like it and it's so bulky. So it's going to be this hat with a matching neck warmer that is just there to, like, if they want to pull it up over their face, they can, or leave it down depending on what they want. So that's my first one. That's a finished object, I mean, except for my tails. And unless I put a pom-pom on it, but I can't pick. Oh, I really love that a lot. I really love that a lot. I was just over the moon with how those colors looked together and how that turned out. So, yeah, I'll show you the next crocheted thing that I'm working on besides the little cowl scarf. And that is this. This is, right now it's just a big panel. I'll show it to you up close so you can see the stitches and the color. This is Savor from Ice Yarn, and this is the color Terracotta. And I'm just working this up in a half double crochet panel because my plan is to turn this into a sweater. So this is the base of a sweater. And it's going to be a big oversized sweater for fall, winter. Oh, yeah, but that's more of like a long-term project. That's like something that I sort of grab and stitch on for a little while and then set down and then pick up and then stitch on for a little while. But I have so much other stuff that I'm working on that I have a feeling it's going to take me a while to finish this. But I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that. It's just something nice to have on hand to grab. And I really like working with Saver, like just the feel of it. You know how some yarns just feel really nice to work with? Saver is one of those yarns for me. I just really like the feel of working with it. So it's just a really nice kind of cozy project to work on. I like it a lot. Now this, I will say, so this Picasso from Ice Yarn, I did an in-depth yarn review on this. If you haven't seen that yet, I will link it up in the cards and in the description box so you can see all my full thoughts on it. Obviously gorgeous. But as far as like working it up, like I don't have a problem working it up. Like it feels fine to work with. I don't have an issue working with it, but it's just not one of those yarns that you kind of like grab and you're working with and you're just like, oh, this is such a pleasant experience. It doesn't mean it's a bad experience. It's just nothing exceptional. And then the Karen Simply Soft, what do I say about it? I like Simply Soft. I have a bunch of it right now because I've been using it on my knitting machine. But as far as crocheting with it, it's splitty. My stitches split. I have to, you know, I will be crocheting and then like 2 stitches back, I'll realize that I only picked up like 3 of the plies or 2 of the plies from the yarn and I got to rip out a couple stitches and go back and fix it. So I don't have any like stray loops sticking out. You know how that happens? Did that happen on this at all? Or did I fix them all as I went? I was being kind of picky, so I probably fixed them all as I went. I think I did. But yeah. So that's that. So this is all that to say that this is just one of those yarns that I just really enjoy working with. So this is like one of those, I just want to have a really happy time with yarn. So I'm going to slowly work on this. So that is that. And if you're interested in these yarns, I will link them in the description box below. I am an affiliate with Ice Yarn, so I do get a small commission if you were to click on that link and place an order, but I'm not trying to sell you yarn. I'm just trying to tell you what I think about it. So, next. This is a biggie. This is what I've been working on for like the past 3 days. And today I had a day with it, you guys. From, I'd say probably 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 p.m. I was just trying to get this one thing to work. So here, let me show you what I'm talking about here. This is, I'm working on a blanket worked up on my Addy knitting machine. So you can see, this is what I have gotten done in the past, sorry, trying not to cover my mouth, in the past 3 days? In the past 3 days. So the way that I'm working it, so with the knitting machine, it's a circular knitting machine, and you can use it to knit panels, like flat panels, or you can use it to knit in tubes. And knitting in tubes is just simpler because when you knit in a flat panel, you have to crank the row and then you have to go backwards and crank backwards to crank the next row. So it's just a lot of forward and back and forward and back. Whereas if you knit in a tube, you just crank and crank and crank and crank and crank and crank all in the same direction. You don't have to worry about it or think about it. So I had scrap yarn laying around. I had some Big Twist from Joann's, Big Twist Value, that I was trying to come up with something to do. And so I figured, hey, I'm going to try it out on my knitting machine. I haven't tried it on my knitting machine yet, and my knitting machine might love it. And it really did. I was super pleased with it because I think I've mentioned this before. I'm not a huge Big Twist Value fan. Like, I don't have a problem with Big Twist from Joann's. I think that it's a good yarn coming from, you know, like not a big name brand yarn. It's an off-brand yarn. It's their own brand of yarn. And I do, like, they have lots of good options and good varieties and good colors and all that good stuff. But for the actual yarn, I don't like crocheting with it. It bothers me. I don't know what it is. Like, that's just me being a picky yarn person. Like, I will be the first one to raise my hand and say that I'm super picky about my yarn. I wish I wasn't, but I just am. And it hasn't really held me back too much because I can usually find things that I do really click with and that I really love for a good price. So it's not like I feel like I have to go out and buy, you know, like hand dyed 100% wool. Like, most of the stuff that I work with is like bargain level acrylics. I just have ones that I like better than others. Anyways, so I thought that I would try it out on my knitting machine and see how it worked up. And lo and behold, it worked up really, really nice. And this just feels so squishy and soft. Like, I love the way that this feels. Like, I'm thinking about making myself a cardigan out of it because I just want to be wrapped up in this all the time. Now, I don't like the way that it feels when it's crocheted. I really don't. I don't like working with it. I don't like the way that it feels. But for some reason, on the knitting machine, I absolutely love it. So I had 2 skeins in this color. So each of these tubes is 1 full skein. Here, I'm going to stand back a minute so you can see the size here. So it's like, it's not going to be massively long. It's going to be more like a lap blanket, like a small throw size. But the length of these tubes, the length of each of these tubes is 1 skein of yarn. So I thought, I want to see what I can get, what kind of blanket size I can get out of a single skein per tube and turn that into a blanket. So that's how far I've gotten. Now, I had the yarn for, I just had 2 skeins of it. So I had a silver and a green. So I worked those up. I went to Joann's last night and I got 2 more skeins of each color. So I'm hoping to have a good size, like, lap blanket or small throw using a total of 6 skeins of yarn. I want to use 6 and see what size that gets me and how that looks. And I worked a tube up in the silver last night and it went fine. No issues with it at all. My knitting machine worked great with it. But for some reason today, I worked up the green. This is another tube, so you can see just what a tube looks like. I worked up the green, and this stupid tube, I worked on it from, like 9:30, 10 in the morning until 2 p.m. And I redid it probably like 8 times because every time I would get going with it, I would start getting tucked stitches or dropped stitches. And for the life of me, I could not figure out why. So I have a little drill with an attachment, like a hand screwdriver, I should say, not a drill. So I use that and then it kind of turns the crank for me so I don't tire my arm out really fast. And so I was using that and then it was getting all jammed up and looking horrible. And I was like, okay, maybe I just shouldn't use the handheld screwdriver. And so I just started hand cranking it, and that worked great until like 50 rows in, and then it all of a sudden became a destroyed mess again. And it took 8 tries going back and forth to figure out exactly what I needed to do to get this tube. Stupid is a bad word in front of my kids. I shouldn't use it on YouTube either. I was very frustrated. I know, if stupid is a curse word, I'm doing okay, right? But I was very frustrated with this today, and it turned out fine. Like you can see, the stitches are all pretty and even. I don't have any dropped stitches or tucked stitches anywhere in this. It just took forever. I had to adjust my tension. I have a little thing that like keeps the tension for me so I don't have to just like, it's not based on how tight or loose I'm holding my finger. So I had to adjust where I had the tension set. And then I had to, and then I was hand cranking it, it still wasn't working. So it had to be the power screwdriver with a tighter tension. And then I finally got it figured out, but it took forever. It took forever. So I'm going to be stitching this next panel on tonight after I get this video all edited. And just be done with that. I have 1 more skein of green. and I'm worried to work with it now. And I wonder if it's because the yarn that I had in my stash, I've had in my stash for at least a year or two. Like I haven't used it in a long time. And it's a different dye lot. So I'm wondering if it was the dye lots that threw it off. Since the new yarn is in a new dye lot, if that is why the machine was freaking out and the settings weren't working like they did on the previous green skein that I had. Anyways, I'll stop talking about it. Could you tell I was really irritated? But I am very proud of this. So like these panels are joined up. I'll show you this. Sorry, not crochet content, knitting machine content. I hope that's okay. Where my joins are, they look really good. And I was worried that joining it, they wouldn't have any stretch in the joins, but they do have stretch in the joins. Because I was concerned that it was just going to be like this tight stitch that stitched it together with no give at all. And so it would be like these tight bands through the blanket. But it worked out. And I will show you the back of it because the back of it looks different than the front. Now I didn't join this in a color that I used on the blanket. This is like, I've never made a blanket on my knitting machine. I've never joined panels with my knitting machine at all. This is like all new territory for me. So I just grabbed some scrap yarn and was joining my panels. So you can see where that join is on the back. I just slip stitched all the way down to get that join there. But I actually kind of like the way that it looks with that little dark gray pin stripe through there. I think it looks kind of pretty. So I'm actually not upset. I'm not upset about that at all. Plus, I lost my row count on one of them. So I made one of the panels way too long. It was like 10 rows too long. So I had to go back through and figure out how to bind off in the middle of the panel. It was like down here. I had to figure out how to bind it off like down in here so that I could take that extra yarn off the end and make it all the same length. So I managed to figure that out. Lots of learning curves. Learning curves trying to figure out product photography. Learning curves trying to figure out how to, hold on, my daughter's coming in. Sorry about that. Anyways, yeah, learning curves. It's all learning curves. Trying to figure out websites and photography and things that I am not normally skilled in, and knitting, which is not my forte. I know how to knit, but I've never taken the time to get good at it. I just have always stuck with crochet because I know it and it feels very familiar and very much like home to me. And as much as I love the look of knit, I really have no desire to really hone my skills in knit. So a knitting machine for me is perfect because then I can have some knitted projects that I really love without actually having to put the work into getting really good at knit. That's a terrible thing to say, but there it is. So that's most of what I have going on as far as whips, finished objects, things like that. Oh, man, it's been a bit of a week, you guys. I will admit to the fact that my depression has been really bad this week for some reason, and my anxiety has been too. So we've sort of been muddling along around here. I've sort of been in survival mode the past few days. I feel like I'm finally starting to come out of it a little bit. A little less in a fog, a little less in a funk, which is good. And I hate those survival mode days where you just kind of get through your day doing like the bare minimum to make sure that everyone is functional and surviving. Never my best self during those days. So I'm excited that I'm starting to see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel and coming out of it a little bit. Oh, which gives me more motivation to keep working on stuff because I really do. I have a lot of fun. So what has been some stuff that you guys have been doing this week? What are your whips? What are you working on? What are you stitching on? I would love to hear about it in the comments. Or if you haven't already and you are on Facebook, you should go, and I will link it in the description. You should come and join the Yarn at Play Crochet Crew. It's a group on Facebook, and it simply exists just so that y'all can share what you're working on, because I feel very one-sided just like showing you all my stuff and then I can't see any of your stuff, because I really like to see what you guys are doing. I love seeing what people's creativity is coming out with and what they're loving, what they might be hating, or what they have going on with yarn. So if you haven't done that already and you're on Facebook, definitely you should check that out. I'm always posting stuff in there, and I always am, you know, chatting it up with people in there too. So check that out. What else? I think that that's probably it. I don't know. Hopefully this was interesting. I feel like this was a little dull. Maybe it's just me being in my own head. But I mean, this isn't dull. That's beautiful. I need to make myself one. I think that if I did make myself one, I would make it with either gray as a stripe or black as the stripe, because I think that that would be beautiful. Anyways, I love rainbows. They just make me happy and feel all sunny inside. So, and I love big squishy blankets. I haven't made, you guys, I haven't made an Afghan, like a full Afghan, not a baby blanket size Afghan, a full Afghan, and probably, it's probably been at least 5 years. And I mean, like so my kids are 7, almost 8. Her birthday's next week. 4, 3, and 1. So since my second was born, my 4-year-old, that kind of put all of my crochet on hold for a long time. So I don't think that I've made a full Afghan crocheted since before she was born. So I should work on that. I should have a project running just of that, just to sort of have it going and having something to stitch on. Kind of like that cardigan, something that you can just kind of pick up and feel good about having, and you know, you just kind of plug away at it. Yeah, I don't tend to take on big projects a lot because I like that satisfaction of completing something and just having it finished. And so I don't tend to make a lot of Afghans because I like that. I will admit to it. I like that instant gratification hit of getting something done in a shorter period of time. Which is why I love scarves and hats and things like that, and amigurumi projects, because a lot of those I can get done in a day. And I really like that. But anyways, that was a tangent. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, you guys. If you thought that this was worthwhile, definitely give this video a like. That goes a really long way to making sure that this video is seen by more people so we can increase our little community here. And if you are interested, also subscribe to the channel. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave that here. If you would like to see any of the yarns that I talked about, I will post the Picasso review and the Saver review. I haven't done a big twist review. I really should do a big twist review, you guys. I should just bite the bullet and do a full in-depth yarn review on Big Twist. I really should. Maybe that's the next yarn I should work on. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. All right. Have a good night, guys. Bye.